What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Boykin Outdoors. On today's episode, we're starting to shift towards fishing segment of this channel, and we're going to talk about safety today, especially for boats and when you're way offshore like we do, going to the Gulf Stream. So we're going to start with some of the more basic offshore things that everybody knows about, and then kind of try to shift into some things that you may not have thought about and give you something to think about here in the future. Something you might want to put on your boat, or you have on your boat, maybe you need to replace or something. But yeah, we'll get right into it. So the most important thing that you can have on a boat offshore fishing, because for the people that don't know, once you get about 12 to 15 miles, depending on weather and conditions and stuff like that, you lose cell phone service. You have nothing other than your VHF, which I think average VHF on a good day goes like 20-ish miles, give or take, something like that. I'm sure some can go further. Ours does about 20. And we run a 23-foot boat with a single outboard. So it just makes everything a little bit more dangerous to be out there. So you have to take these safety precautions now before you get out there. So like I was saying, the most important thing that I think you can have on your boat is either an EPIRB or a PLB or both. This is a PLB, it's a personal locator beacon. It works off of satellite. Pop the antenna out, point it straight to the sky, clear view of the sky, and then you set it off and it sends out signals to the Coast Guard and everybody else around you and stuff like that. So if your boat's sinking, taking on water, you catch on fire, somebody falls overboard, you can't find them, and you can't contact anybody because you don't have cell phone service when you're offshore. This thing right here is a great thing to have. It's a backup. It's got a little clip on it. I think this one's from ACR. You can clip it to you. We typically have this on somebody while we're running out the inlet. Like when we're running out the inlet, running at night on the way to the Gulf Stream or on the way to wherever we're going, someone's typically either got this in their pocket or on them. So if somebody goes overboard or they go overboard, they have something to hit if we can't find them, or that kind of thing, can't recover them. Probably the single most important thing you can carry offshore. So like I said, that's an ACR personal locator beacon. They make EPIRBs and they make a bunch of other stuff. Just have something like this. And make sure you test it, make sure it works, but don't test it too much because you kill the battery every time you test it, I believe is what they were saying on this. So test it once, make sure it works, and then make sure you have that on your boat. That's more obvious. Another obvious thing, like I was saying, is your VHF radio. Make sure you have a functioning, working VHF radio. That's your only line of communication out there. That's another thing, more obvious. Just make sure you have something you can talk to somebody. You can call the Coast Guard, you can call CTOW, Towboat US, whatever tow service you have offshore. You can try to get up with them through that. Another thing that my buddy just purchased, and I'm glad he did because they're kind of expensive, but they are worth it, is he bought a Garmin inReach. You can literally text people from the stream. It's a satellite phone basically. That's something if you're in a small boat, you don't know anybody out there, something else good, and it's a backup to this. You can set up like SOSs, and I believe he was telling me that you can set up intervals to where it'll send your location to an online type thing to where people, your loved ones, your family, your friends back home who know how to get into the account can see where you were at different points of the day based on those intervals. So that's going to be really nice to have this year, and it really makes us feel better. My parents, his parents, our friends, whoever we give it to can get on there and be like, okay, they were here 30 minutes ago. And if something happens, they have a start to where to look. So those three things are more your obvious things. Obviously have your life jackets and all your safety flares and all that stuff, but that's more a requirement by law to have those. So I didn't feel like I really needed to talk about that. Like inReaches and this and a VHF aren't really required by law, but are definitely a great thing to add to your boat and make sure you have, basically. So now we're going to get in, we'll get one more obvious thing. Another super important thing. Have a first aid kit on your boat. You never know what can happen, and it always happens when you least expect it. And make sure your first aid kit includes a tourniquet. This one has a tourniquet in it as well. Because you never know, you hit an artery out there trying to cut up bait fish, you might be filleting something, you just never know. Something goes crazy, somebody gets hooked and you just bleed and can't stop the bleeding. Tourniquet, make sure you have a tourniquet. This thing, I think I paid $40 for this right here. This has, just got like all sorts of dressing, sterile gauze, non-adhesive pads, trauma pads. It's got tweezers and shears and cotton swabs, medical tape. Like I said, it's got the tourniquet. It's got like safety pins and whistles and all sorts of stuff. You just never know what you're going to need. And it's got a CPR kit right there. Like I said, when you're 70 miles off the beach and you have no communication with people, you have to be able to take care of yourself, and at least till the Coast Guard can get to you. And it may save somebody's life. So have a good first aid kit. Make sure that you replace it every now and then. Make sure all the stuff in it's still good. More obvious thing, $40 could save someone's life, and fish ain't worth somebody's life. So make sure you have something like this. So this is about $40. I think these little PLBs are anywhere from like $300 to $500, depending on what you're fishing. But you think if you're running a very expensive boat offshore and all the fishing equipment, this is not very expensive compared to all that. It's like a nice fishing reel that could save your life. And this will last like 5 years, I believe is what it is. Every 5 years replace it. So $100 a year to ensure that you have a way to send out a SOS if you need it. Buy one. I apologize about the background noise. Apparently the dishwasher's running, but hopefully you can still hear me. So we're going to move into less obvious things, just good things to have on the boat. Like I said, you're running a single outboard like we are, and you're relying on that one motor to get you there and get you back. You're relying on that boat to get you there and get you back. You got to be able to take care of yourself out there to fix small problems, to get home where you can fix it better. So first thing I'm saying get some pipe clamps of various sizes. As you can see, there are all kinds of small, large pipe clamps. I call them pipe clamps. They may be called something else, but just get those. You never know when hoses or something come undone. You might need to pipe clamp something back. You just never know. You just don't know. So it's just a good little thing. I think I paid $10 for all of these. Just throw them in your boat, keep them in a bag. And I'll tell you what we do with all our stuff to keep salt water from getting to it here in just a minute once we get through everything. But yeah, pipe clamp, super cheap, super easy. Put one on your boat, put them on your boat. Nice to have. Next thing, not very expensive either. Just a pack of zip ties. I mean, you never know what kind of wiring stuff. You don't know if you're gonna have to cut into the wiring harnesses and to replace stuff and work on stuff. GPS units, VHFs, all sorts of stuff. You just don't know. All sorts of electrical stuff's on a boat. Nice to have, very nice to have. Just super cheap, throw them on your boat, never know when you'll need them. Speaking of wiring, we also carry this electrical terminal set like this. This one's from Marine Warehouse. I don't know how much I paid for this, maybe $30, but you get, you can see all of those kits right there. You never know when your wiring is going to go bad. Cut your GPS off, it could just be a corroded terminal or something like this, and you need to replace it. We've got, it's got ring terminals, butt splice connectors, quick connectors, snap plugs. Just an overall good thing to keep on the boat, keep your electronics running, get you home kind of thing. If you don't have a compass on your boat, that would be also another thing. A lot of boats today, like our boat, has a compass on it. Make sure you have a compass. You buy one, handheld one, just have a compass, because if your electronics go out, how are you getting home? That's what you gotta, because when you're 70 miles off the beach, all it takes is to look down and look back up, and next thing you know, you don't know which direction's home. You don't know where west is, you don't know where east is. You run the wrong way, you're gonna be 4 hours from the beach versus, running into the beach. So have a compass, have some good stuff to be able to repair your VHFs and whatever else, and just have some good connectors. That's, like I said, $40. You're running a very expensive boat offshore, might as well throw that in there. Another thing that I would suggest is, you can see that's a nice, this is a cheap socket set, but if you want to put a nice one on there, you can. But we have a cheap socket set. You just never know, like I said, if you have to pull the prop off or anything like that, you might need this to get it off, depending on the size of that castle nut. You just never know. You might have to pull a spark plug that's offshore. This one comes with like a deep socket that you could probably pull a spark plug with if you wanted to. You just never know what you're gonna need offshore. So always bring more than you think you need, because you never know. So get a nice little set like that. I think I paid $20 for that one. It's not terribly expensive. Another thing that's small is I have a bag of different size cotter pins. And what a cotter pin does is when you go to pull the prop off, there's a cotter pin that slides to that castle nut. And a lot of times when you pull the cotter pin off to pull the prop off, so like say you get line wrapped behind it, you run over something that's wrapped, you just never know. You have to pull the prop off, or you have to replace the prop offshore. That's another thing that could happen. But when you go to pull these off, a lot of times they're either not usable, you break them, or you don't trust them. So it's always good to have a backup set of cotter pins that you can stick in there and know that you can trust it to get home. I don't have one with me, but a backup prop, if you're running a single outboard like we are, is another great thing to have. Buy a cheap one, because you never know. You run over a deadhead, a log, you hit something. You just never know when you're running offshore. And you break the prop and you need to replace it so you can get home. Have an extra prop, that's another great thing. Electrical tape, I pulled this one to the side. Never know when you just need to tape stuff up. It can be used first aid wise, it can be used on a boat for electrical stuff, all sorts of stuff. So just a great useful tool. It's kind of like duct tape offshore, and you can use it for a lot of stuff. So electrical tape. And last, and one of the most important things that I like, makes me feel great offshore, is a nice, this is just a home toolkit, like really. So as you can see, we got just, a little knife up here, more electrical tape. We got screwdrivers and wrenches, and this screwdriver's got the adjustable bits that go into it, so you can, everything from a Phillips head, flat head, star bit. You never know what you're going to be working on, what kind of head you're going to need, but you got that. You got smaller screwdrivers right there. We got extra blades, saw, who knows? It's just there. It's good to have. We got a light in case we got to get up in something we can't see. That's that side of thing. And on this side, which we've got everything from crescent wrench or an adjustable wrench, you may know it as. We got channel locks. We got just like snipped cutters. And we got pliers, Allen wrenches, all sorts of little, like, looks like we got some nuts and screws and even some little nails there, hammer. I mean, you just never know. It's a great little thing to have on the boat because you never know what you're going to have to replace or work on. So I would suggest getting something like this, keep it on the boat. So the obvious thing that everybody sees is you're fishing saltwater. We've got all this, what I would call cheaper stuff, which obviously you're not trying to buy the most expensive stuff because you're going to be replacing it before long. So what we do is all of this stuff before the season will be vacuum sealed. My buddy has a sealer. We'll take it all out and we'll vacuum seal it in vacuum seal bags. That way it's airtight and watertight, can't get to it. Hopefully keep them from rusting. And it's a good thing if you're gonna vacuum seal them, do it once a year. It's a cheap alternative to keep your stuff lasting longer. If you're not gonna vacuum seal them like we do, just be prepared to replace that every year, 2 years, 3 years, just depending on how quickly they rust, or if they get wet, that kind of thing. But the most important thing offshore is to be safe. And a lot of times people just think about fishing safety. They're like, I don't want to hook myself, I don't want to cut myself, that kind of thing. But they don't really think about, well, I'm going to be running offshore. What happens if the motor shuts off? What happens if a wire for some reason eats through or something? They don't think about mechanical type issues that are out there. Last trip of the season we went out, we had one dude, he was out with a single outboard. It quit working. We're listening to this over VHF. Quit working, and another boat out there was able to bring stuff like this to help him fix it and get going. We also had a guy running behind us. We could literally see the guy behind us. And he had twins, so he was lucky. But when he blew a piston outside of his motor, I think it was port side motor or something like that. And yes, port side is the left. This is my left. So just let y'all know I do know port and starboard. But so yeah, that you just never know what's going to happen. Like, I mean, you can't fix the fact that it threw a piston rod outside of the motor. He had another motor and was prepared, but you know what I mean. That stuff you can't fix, but there's a lot of smaller stuff that you could fix and get you home, limp home, until you can get it to a shop or you can properly repair it. So just prepare for the worst. Be safe out there. Enjoy your time out there, because just remember, if you're out there, don't take it for granted. There's a lot of people that live in state, a lot of people in towards the middle of the country. There's a lot of people that can't afford to go do it. So enjoy it. Be grateful that you're out there. Like I said, just enjoy every minute and be safe. We hope you guys have a good fishing season. We're going to start making some how-to videos, maybe some knot tie-in stuff, maybe some like how to catch the fish, what we think works for us. just overall fishing. So we hope y'all enjoyed this. This is a little kickoff. We'll see y'all on another episode of Boykin Outdoors, and y'all be safe out there. Catch us a fish.